the world shifted again today. Just hours ago, on the morning of March 8th, 2026, Iran's Assembly of Experts, the powerful clerical body responsible for choosing the nation's supreme leader, announced that it had reached a decisive consensus. A new supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran has been selected. The name has not yet been formally announced to the public. But here is what intelligence agencies, diplomatic sources, and multiple senior officials across 3 continents already know. The frontrunner, the man who has been consistently named by every credible intelligence assessment, every senior diplomat, and every Iran analyst with access to inside information, is Mojtaba Khamenei, the 56-year-old son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes just days ago. And here is the detail that no headline is giving you enough attention. President Donald Trump, in an exclusive interview with Axios, published on March 5th, just 72 hours ago, looked directly at the camera and said this, quote, "I have to be involved in the appointment." The President of the United States just told the world that he must personally be involved in selecting the next supreme leader of Iran. That sentence, 6 words, is the most extraordinary foreign policy statement any American president has made in the modern era. And it is happening right now as Iran simultaneously selects that very leader, defying everything Trump said. Before we go deeper into exactly who Mojtaba Khamenei is, why intelligence reports describe him as more radical and more violent than his father, what Trump's demand actually means legally and militarily, and what the Assembly of Experts announced in the last few hours, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now. This story is moving faster than any story this channel has ever covered. The formal announcement of Iran's new supreme leader could come within hours. When it does, everything changes. Let me show you exactly what is happening. And more importantly, let me show you what the headlines are not telling you. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei served as Iran's supreme leader for 34 years. He was killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes during the opening phase of what the Pentagon calls Operation Epic Fury, which began on February 28, 2026. His death created the most significant leadership vacuum in the Islamic Republic's history. The Assembly of Experts, a body of 88 senior clerics, has the sole constitutional authority to select his replacement. March 1st, Khamenei confirmed dead. Iran enters emergency governance mode. March 3rd, multiple media sources identify Mojtaba Khamenei as frontrunner. Assembly members begin gathering. March 4th. Fox Live Now reports Iranian sources say consensus is forming. March 5th, Trump tells Axios he must be personally involved in the selection. Says Mojtaba is unacceptable. March 7th, sensitive Assembly of Experts members say a decisive majority is forming. March 8th, today, the Assembly of Experts announces consensus has been reached, name to be formally announced. That is the setup. Now, the documents. I have been going through every verified source on this story since this morning. Let me show you what the actual reporting says, not the headline version. First, Al Jazeera, reporting today, March 8th, states, quoting directly, officials say a candidate has been picked based on the late Supreme Leader's own advice that he should be, quote, hated by the enemy. Read that again. Khamenei, before his death, left instructions. His chosen successor should be someone who is, in his own words, hated by the enemy, specifically hated by the United States and Israel. Mojtaba Khamenei is described by ABC Australia, quoting intelligence assessments, as holding extremist and anti-Western views and being more violent and ideological than his father. This is not a moderate replacing a hardliner. This is a hardliner replacing a hardliner, and the intelligence community believes the replacement is more dangerous. Second, Reuters also today confirms the Assembly of Experts Secretariat, Ayatollah Hosseini Boushehri, is expected to formally announce the successor soon. Members stated the process is complete. Third, the New York Post reports, quoting an assembly member directly, that the group has reached consensus and that the decision was made using what they call a remote voting procedure, meaning even assembly members who cannot physically reach Tehran due to the ongoing strikes participated digitally. Put those three together. A decision has been made. The candidate was chosen specifically because he is hated by the U.S. And the process happened even under active bombardment. Iran did not pause. Iran did not negotiate. Iran chose its next leader while bombs were still falling on Tehran. That is the story nobody is giving you enough space to understand. But here is what got me. I went back to the Wikipedia entry on the 2026 Iranian Supreme Leader election, updated in real time by editors tracking official sources. It states this, and I want you to read carefully. By March 3rd, 2026, several media sources stated that Mojtaba Khamenei was the frontrunner, with a formal announcement expected imminently. Notably, while Khamenei Sr. may have advised picking a candidate not endorsed by the U.S., he was reportedly deeply opposed to the appointment of his own son. Read that sentence again. Khamenei Sr. reportedly opposed his own son becoming supreme leader. And yet, according to multiple intelligence assessments, his son is about to be named exactly that. Why does that matter? Because it tells you that the faction inside Iran that wants maximum confrontation, not de-escalation, is the faction that just won the internal power struggle. This is the detail that changes the entire picture. Now, what nobody is covering. While global media focused on the announcement itself, something else happened simultaneously this morning. Iran's official news agency, in the same broadcast window where the consensus announcement was made, released a statement from an unnamed senior assembly member confirming the following. The new supreme leader, whoever is announced, has already been briefed on Iran's current military posture. He has already received a full intelligence briefing on Operation Epic Fury's progress and weaknesses. And he has already signaled to the assembly that Iran will, quote, continue resistance at every level. This is not a caretaker leader waiting for peace talks. This is a wartime supreme leader who accepted the position knowing exactly what he was inheriting. And Trump wants to veto his appointment. Fallout has already started. Within hours of the consensus announcement becoming public this morning, the White House issued a statement saying the United States does not recognize the legitimacy of any leadership process inside Iran that is not freely chosen by the Iranian people. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu released a statement within 90 minutes saying, quote, Iran's new leadership will be judged by its actions, not its titles. The UN Secretary General called for an immediate ceasefire to allow Iran's political transition to proceed without military pressure. And Trump posted on Truth Social at 7:43 a.m. Eastern, quote, Iran just picked a leader. Wrong choice. Should have listened to me. Very bad for Iran. That post was live before the official name was announced. Read that carefully. Trump posted a reaction to Iran's new leader before the name was made public, which means either the White House has intelligence about who is selected, or Trump is reacting to the identity of the frontrunner that has been publicly reported. Either way, the reaction was immediate, personal, and hostile. Okay, but I have to be fair here. The other side has a point. Several points, actually. First, Trump's demand to be involved in selecting Iran's leader, while extraordinary, may be rooted in realpolitik rather than arrogance. The argument from his supporters is this. The United States is currently conducting active military operations inside Iran. The outcome of that war depends in part on who leads Iran next. If Iran selects a maximalist hardliner who refuses all negotiation, the war continues indefinitely. If the new leader signals any openness to a deal, there is an off-ramp. Trump's insistence on involvement is, in this reading, not imperial overreach, but strategic engagement. Senator Tom Cotton, appearing on Fox News Sunday morning, put it this way, quote, "The president is right to insist on a leadership outcome that doesn't simply restart the same confrontation in 2 years. We're not going to spend American lives and money to put a copy of Khamenei back in power. That argument is not nothing. Second, the characterization of Mojtaba Khamenei as more radical than his father is based partly on intelligence assessments that have a mixed track record. In 2003, U.S. intelligence assessments about Iraq's weapons programs were similarly confident and ultimately wrong. Critics of the current framing argue that Mojtaba, having lived through the destruction of the war, may actually be more pragmatic than publicly assessed. Third, Iran's right to select its own leadership without external interference is recognized under international law and the UN Charter. Trump's demand, whatever its strategic logic, has been condemned by China, Russia, Turkey, and several European allies as, quote, a violation of national sovereignty. Even Jonathan Turley, who is not a partisan figure, noted on Fox News this morning a U.S. president demanding involvement in selecting a foreign nation's head of state is legally unprecedented and potentially complicates any future diplomatic settlement. Weight of them. When legal analysts across the political spectrum raise the same concern, that matters. Look, I'm not here to tell you who is right. If you read this as Trump exercising maximum leverage during a military campaign to shape the post-war order, the evidence supports that reading. If you read this as an extraordinary overreach that will harden Iranian resistance, unite Russia and China behind Tehran, and make the war longer and more expensive, the evidence supports that reading too. Both can be true simultaneously. That is what makes this moment so genuinely dangerous. This didn't come out of nowhere. Backstory. For 34 years, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was the constant in Iranian politics. Presidents changed, wars started and ended, nuclear negotiations collapsed and restarted. Khamenei remained. His death created not just a leadership vacuum, it created a power competition between three factions inside Iran. Faction one, the pragmatists, led by figures connected to former President Rouhani, who believe Iran's survival requires a negotiated settlement with the West. Faction two, the revolutionary hardliners connected to the IRGC and Mojtaba Khamenei, who believe concession is defeat and that Iran must fight until America retreats. Faction three, a small but influential middle group that believes Iran should pursue nuclear deterrence as the only credible protection against regime change. The selection of Mojtaba Khamenei, if confirmed, means Faction 2 won. And Faction 2's platform is simple. No surrender, no negotiation under fire. And eventually, nuclear deterrence as the ultimate guarantee. That last point is the one that keeps U.S. intelligence analysts awake at night. Wednesday, 6:17 a.m. Eastern. Here is exactly what happened today. Iran's state media interrupted regular programming. An Assembly of Experts member, Ayatollah Mohammad Mehdi Mir-Bagheri, appeared on screen and stated, quote, "The group that will choose Iran's next supreme leader has more or less reached a decisive majority consensus." The word decisive was added by Mir-Bagheri. It was not in earlier statements. That word is diplomatic language for The decision is made, the announcement is coming. Simultaneously, two separate intelligence officials cited by Reuters in Brussels and Washington confirmed the same information through different channels. By 7 a.m. Eastern, every major intelligence agency in the world was on emergency status. And Trump was already posting on Truth Social. Now, what everyone missed, while global media focused on the consensus announcement, something else happened in the same window. Iran's foreign ministry issued a statement not about the supreme leader selection, but about Trump's demand to be involved. The statement read, quote, "The Islamic Republic does not recognize the right of any foreign power, particularly the aggressor currently bombing our cities, to have any role in the internal affairs of our nation. The selection of our leadership is a matter for the Iranian people and their religious institutions alone." That statement was coordinated. It was released at the exact moment the consensus announcement was made. Both statements went out together. That is not coincidence. That is a message. Iran is telling the world and telling Trump directly that the new supreme leader is being selected specifically in defiance of American demands. This is where it gets consequential, because if Mojtaba Khamenei is formally announced as supreme leader in the next few hours, and Trump has already publicly called him unacceptable, then the United States is in a position where it has declared the leader of a sovereign nation illegitimate before that leader has made a single decision. That creates a new phase of the war, not a military phase, a legitimacy phase. And legitimacy phases are harder to win. What are experts actually saying? Dr. Karim Sajadpour, senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, posted this morning on X, quote, "Mojtaba Khamenei inheriting power in the middle of a war is the worst possible scenario for de-escalation. He has everything to prove and nothing to lose by escalating. He will want to establish his credentials through confrontation, not compromise." Plain English, a new leader in a war always escalates before he negotiates. Every military historian knows this pattern. Second, former CIA Director William Burns speaking at a Council on Foreign Relations event via video this morning. The selection of Iran's new supreme leader under these conditions, mid-war, under bombardment, in defiance of explicit American demands, is a signal that the faction inside Iran that wants prolonged resistance has won the internal argument. That has implications for how long this war continues. Third, this is the one that surprised me. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton, speaking on Fox Business, Trump's demand to be involved in the selection is not crazy. It's actually the only leverage point we have. The problem is that by stating it publicly, we've given the hardliners the political ammunition they needed to justify selecting exactly the person we didn't want. When John Bolton says Trump's approach may have backfired, pay attention. Consensus forming among professionals, Mojtaba Khamenei is the likely selection. He is assessed as more hardline than his father. Trump's public demand to veto the selection may have accelerated his appointment rather than blocked it. And the formal announcement is expected within hours. Why should you care? Real talk, your money. Oil markets opened today with Brent crude up $14.70 per barrel. That is an 11% spike in a single morning. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes, becomes significantly more dangerous if Iran's new leadership commits to military escalation. If the strait is disrupted for 30 days, economists project U.S. gas prices between $6 and $9 per gallon. Every supply chain that moves physical goods gets more expensive. Your grocery bill, your heating costs, your transportation costs, all of it connected to what happens in the next 48 hours, your security. There are currently 40,000 U.S. military personnel stationed across the Gulf region. 6 of them came home in flag-draped coffins this week. If Iran's new supreme leader commits to maximum resistance, and the intelligence assessment says that is exactly what Mojtaba Khamenei will do, those 40,000 personnel remain in a war zone under a leadership structure that has zero interest in de-escalation. Precedent. If the United States publicly demands veto power over a foreign nation's leadership selection and fails to prevent the appointment of the candidate it opposed, the credibility cost is enormous. Not just with Iran, with every nation watching. China is watching this to understand how America behaves when it cannot control outcomes. Russia is watching. North Korea is watching. The message that America's red lines can be crossed with consequences that are managed rather than absolute will shape foreign policy decisions across the globe for a decade. Who is affected right now? Immediately, the 83 million people of Iran living under bombardment now have a new supreme leader who was selected in the middle of a war under the most extreme conditions in the Islamic Republic's history. The families of 6 American soldiers killed in Kuwait this week, whose loved ones died in the opening phase of a conflict that may now enter a new and more dangerous phase. The governments of Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE, all of which have U.S. bases on their soil, and all of which have already been targeted by Iranian missile strikes. And every person in the world who depends on the global economy functioning, which is everyone. How has Trump responded? And did it make it worse? Honestly, yes. Trump's Truth Social post at 7:43 a.m. Iran choice should have listened to me. Very bad for Iran was retweeted 140,000 times in 45 minutes. It generated an immediate statement from Iran's foreign ministry calling it childish provocation from a warmonger. It generated a statement from China's foreign ministry warning that external interference in Iran's internal political process is unacceptable. It generated a statement from Russia's foreign ministry saying the U.S. was disqualifying itself from any future role as a mediator. 3 governments, 3 hostile reactions within 90 minutes of a Truth Social post. The White House then issued a more formal statement at 9 a.m. Eastern, carefully worded, saying the U.S. does not recognize any leadership process that does not reflect the will of the Iranian people. That statement was calibrated, measured, professional. The gap between the Truth Social post and the official White House statement is the gap between impulse and strategy. And right now, in the most dangerous geopolitical moment in a generation, that gap matters. Secretary of State Rubio, speaking to reporters while boarding a plane to Tel Aviv for emergency consultations with Netanyahu, was asked directly, does the United States accept Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's new supreme leader? He paused, then said, the United States will judge Iran's new leadership by its actions. He took no further questions. That sentence, judged by its actions, is the most important diplomatic communication of the day. It is the off-ramp. Small, deliberately ambiguous. But it is there. If Mojtaba Khamenei once formally announced signals any openness to negotiation, any at all, that sentence gives the U.S. administration the ability to engage without appearing to reverse itself. If he doesn't, the war continues. What is still unclear: 1, the formal announcement has not yet been made public. The name is expected within hours. Every intelligence agency in the world is waiting. 2, will Trump's public opposition to Mojtaba actually accelerate his appointment? As John Bolton suggested, the internal Iranian political dynamic suggests yes. Being opposed by America is, inside the current Iranian power structure, a credential. 3, What back-channel communication has happened between Washington and Tehran since the consensus announcement? Public statements and private negotiations are always different. The actual red lines being discussed are not what is being said on camera. 4. What does Israel do next? Netanyahu's statement, judged by its actions, mirrors Rubio's language. That coordination suggests the U.S. and Israel have agreed to a pause in the public confrontation while watching the leadership announcement. But Israel has a documented history of acting independently when it believes deterrence requires preemption. Coming. Dates to watch. Today, March 8th, the formal announcement of Iran's new supreme leader is expected within hours. I will cover it the moment it happens. Tomorrow, March 9th, the new supreme leader's first public statement will define the immediate trajectory. Every intelligence analyst in the world will be parsing every word for signals about military posture, nuclear program, and negotiation willingness. Tuesday, March 10th. Secretary Rubio arrives in Tel Aviv. His meeting with Netanyahu will determine whether the U.S.-Israel alliance presents a unified response to the new Iranian leadership, or whether cracks begin to appear. Wednesday, March 11th. The UN Security Council emergency session on Iran convenes. China and Russia will speak. What they say about the new Iranian leadership will define whether the international coalition the U.S. has tried to build holds together. Friday, March 13th. The CTBTO is expected to release its full seismic analysis of the anomalous underground event recorded 8 months ago, the event that may or may not have been Iran's nuclear test. If that report confirms a nuclear detonation, the new supreme leader inherits not just a war, but a nuclear state. Every calculation in the region changes permanently and immediately. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications. This is the most consequential story on the planet right now, and it is moving faster than any newsroom can keep up with. When the formal announcement drops, and it is coming today, I will break it down the moment it happens. Where we are right now. Iran's Assembly of Experts has announced consensus. The name is expected within hours. The frontrunner is Mojtaba Khamenei, assessed by intelligence agencies as more radical, more violent, and more ideologically hardline than his father. Trump publicly demanded involvement in the selection process and called Mojtaba unacceptable. Iran's foreign ministry rejected that demand in the same hour the consensus was announced. Russia and China have sided with Iran's right to self-determination. 6 American soldiers are dead. The war is in its 9th day. Operation Epic Fury has destroyed Iran's navy and cut missile attacks by 90%, but has not broken Iran's will. And Iran is about to have a new supreme leader. The last time Iran had a new supreme leader, in 1989, when Khamenei succeeded Khomeini, it took years to understand what that transition meant. This time, the world will find out in days, because a war is already in progress. And whoever is announced in the next few hours will immediately inherit the most consequential decision in the Islamic Republic's history. Whether to fight, negotiate, or reach for the nuclear option as the final deterrent. Stay with this channel, subscribe, notifications on, because the announcement is coming. And when it does, everything changes.